The message came on all frequencies in all languages, across every screen and neural interface on Earth. Your species is inadequate. Submit or be eliminated. That was 3 years ago. I still remember how my coffee cup slipped from my fingers in the NASA control room, shattering against the floor as those arrogant words scrolled across our monitors. The Vextheri, as they called themselves, had simply appeared one day, their massive ships blotting out the stars above every major city on Earth. They were tall, crystalline beings that move with liquid grace, their translucent bodies refracting light in ways that made them seem almost divine. Almost, until you saw the contempt in their faceted eyes. Lumens, their ambassador had declared during the first contact meeting at the UN, are a primitive species playing with forces beyond their comprehension. Your technology is crude, your bodies are fragile, your minds are limited. The way they said it, like they were discussing particularly slow children, made my blood boil even now. I'm Dr. Olivia Bennett, lead researcher for Project Phoenix, and I was there when they gave us their ultimatum. Submit to their guidance, become protectorate species under their benevolent rule, or face extinction. They gave us 1 month to decide. The world leaders tried diplomacy first, of course, offered cultural exchange, trade agreements, even technological collaboration. The Vextheri dismissed it all with that same crystalline laugh that sounded like breaking glass. "What could you possibly offer us?" their ambassador had asked, genuine amusement in their multifaceted eyes. What they didn't understand, what they couldn't understand, was that humans had something they'd never encountered before. Desperation mixed with pure, stubborn defiance. While the politicians talked, people like me were working. The Vextheri had made one crucial mistake. They'd shown us their technology. Just glimpses. But for humans, glimpses were enough. In my lab deep beneath the Rocky Mountains, we worked without sleep, analyzing every scrap of data we could gather about their crystalline biology. They thought their physical form made them superior. They never considered it might be their greatest weakness. Dr. Bennett, my assistant, called out to me now, her voice trembling with excitement. "The latest simulation results. You need to see this." I moved to her station, scanning the holographic display floating above her desk. The numbers made my heart race. "Run it again," I ordered. Try to keep my voice steady. Triple check everything. The next hour was the longest of my life. Each verification came back positive. What we discovered wasn't just a weakness. It was a key to everything. The Vextheri's crystalline structure, the very thing that made them seem so superior, could be disrupted by a specific frequency of sonic waves. But not just disrupted, completely rewritten. "Get me the Joint Chiefs," I said, my fingers already flying over the keyboard preparing the briefing. "And someone wake up the president." That was the moment everything changed. The moment we stopped being the primitive species they dismissed. The moment we started fighting back. The Vextheri had called us inadequate, had expected us to kneel. They never imagined that their ultimatum would unite humanity like nothing else in our history. They never considered that giving us a deadline would focus our efforts, drive our innovation, push us to evolve faster than any species they'd encountered before. They thought they were giving us time to accept our fate. Instead, they gave us time to find their weakness. And now, as I prepare to present our findings to Earth's Unified Defense Council, I can't help but smile. The Vextheri are about to learn what humans do best: adapt, overcome, and turn the tables when everyone else thinks we're finished. They said humans couldn't win. They're about to learn just how wrong they were. The Defense Council chamber was silent as I finished my presentation. 50 of Earth's most powerful military and scientific leaders sat before me, their faces illuminated by the holographic models of Vextheri molecular structures rotating slowly above the center table. General Santos was the first to speak, her weathered face tight with controlled excitement. "You're telling us we can not only hurt them, but reprogram them? In essence?" "Yes," I replied, zooming in on a particular crystalline formation. Their bodies are essentially living quantum computers. Their consciousness, Their very essence is encoded in these lattice structures. With the right frequency, we can rewrite their basic programming. Their superiority is about to become their downfall. How long to weaponize this? The Chinese military representative leaned forward, his eyes sharp. I shared a look with Maya before answering. We've already done it. The prototype sonic emitter is ready for mass production. We can have them deployed globally within 2 weeks. The Vex Theory's deadline is in 10 days, someone pointed out from the back of the room. Then we'll have to work faster. I said firmly, we've already transmitted the specifications to manufacturing facilities on every continent. The beauty of this weapon is its simplicity. It can be produced using existing audio technology with minimal modifications. The next week was a blur of activity. While the world above carried on its charade of preparing for submission, underground facilities worked around the clock. The Vex Theory watched our obvious military movements with amusement, never noticing the real threat being built in converted recording studios and audio research labs. They didn't even try to stop our primitive radio broadcasts when we began testing the frequencies. Why would they? To them, our electromagnetic communications were like stone tools to a spacefaring race. 3 days before their deadline, we were ready. The plan was beautiful in its simplicity, a synchronized global broadcast on what we dubbed the Prometheus frequency. Every speaker, every sound system, every audio device on Earth would transmit simultaneously. The night before the attack, I couldn't sleep. I stood at my lab window, looking up at the Vex Theory ships that still hung in our sky like crystalline shadows. Are we doing the right thing? Maya asked softly, joining me. They gave us no choice, I replied, but the weight of what we were about to do sat heavy on my shoulders. We weren't just going to defeat them. We were going to fundamentally change their entire species. The ethical implications were staggering. What do you think they'll become? She wondered. I shook my head. The simulation suggests a frequency will rewrite their base programming to something more compatible with human consciousness. They'll retain their memories, their intelligence, but their fundamental drive to dominate should be replaced with capacity for true cooperation. We're going to forcibly evolve them, Maya said, and I heard the mix of awe and horror in her voice. They wanted to subjugate us, to make us what they wanted. I said firmly, instead, we're going to show them what humanity has learned over our long, bloody history, that true strength comes from unity, not dominance. They're about to get a crash course in human values. Dawn broke over the Rockies, painting the Vex Theory ships in shades of pink and gold. In 3 hours, they expected our surrender. Instead, they were going to experience something their species had never known, change. I touched a small device in my pocket, a quantum resonance recorder. Someone needed to document what was about to happen. Someone needed to remember what they had been, even as we transformed them into what they could become. It's time, Maya said softly, checking her watch. I nodded, turning away from the window. Send the signal. Tell everyone to begin. The first indication that something was happening came as a subtle vibration, more felt than heard. The Vex Theory ships above Denver shimmered slightly, like heat waves rising from hot asphalt. In my hand, the quantum resonance recorder was already capturing everything. Humanity's moment of revolution. Frequency synchronization at 97% globally, Maya reported, her voice tense as she monitored the worldwide network. Australia's online. Europe's online. The Americas were all broadcasting. The vibration grew stronger. Through the lab's reinforced windows, I watched as the crystalline surfaces of the nearest ship began to pulse with an inner light. The sight reminded me of a heart beating. Ironic, since the Vex Theory had always prided themselves on being beyond such primitive biological functions. Then the screaming began. It wasn't a sound any human throat could make. It was a cry of crystal under stress, a high, piercing keening that made my teeth ache. The Vex Theory ships began to glow brighter, their previously perfect surfaces developing hairline fractures that spread like lightning across their hulls. Dr. Bennett. Maya's voice was urgent. We're getting reports of Vexteri ground forces. They're changing. The main screen filled with footage from around the world. In New York, a Vexteri overseer had fallen to their knees, their crystalline form pulsing with rainbow light. In Beijing, 3 of them held each other as their bodies underwent some kind of transformation. And in London, 1 stood perfectly still, tears of liquid crystal running down their faceted face as their bodies slowly became translucent, then transparent, revealing complex patterns of light within. Their neural patterns are reorganizing, I said, watching the data stream across my monitors. The frequency is rewriting their basic drives, just as we predicted. But I gestured to the screens. This physical transformation is unexpected. A sudden flash of light from above drew our attention back to the windows. The Vexteri mothership was now glowing so brightly it hurt to look at directly. As we watched, sections of it began to shift and flow like ice melting and refreezing in new patterns. All their technology was based on their crystalline nature, Maya realized aloud. We're not just changing them, we're changing everything they built. She was right. The ships weren't just ships. They were extensions of the Vexteri themselves, grown rather than built, as their creators transformed. So too did their creations. The process lasted exactly 17 minutes and 43 seconds. I know because I checked the recorder's timestamp later. 17 minutes to fundamentally change an entire species. 17 minutes to turn would-be conquerors into something else. When the light finally faded, the ships above were unrecognizable. Where sharp, aggressive crystalline structures had been, now floated organic-looking vessels that seemed to flow and pulse with inner light. They reminded me of massive soap bubbles, if soap bubbles were made of living crystal and thought. Dr. Bennett. A voice called from the communication station. The Vexteri ambassador is requesting to speak with you personally. They're crying. I took a deep breath, straightening my lab coat. This was the moment of truth. We'd gambled everything on our understanding of their biology, on our calculations, on our belief that we could change them without destroying them. Now we would find out what exactly we'd created. Put them through, I said. Turn to face the main screen. Let's meet our new neighbors. The face that appeared was both familiar and startlingly different. The ambassador's crystalline features had softened somehow, and light pulsed through their form in complex patterns that seemed to convey emotion. Their eyes, once cold and faceted, now swirled with colors I had no names for. Dr. Bennett, they said, and their voice was like chimes in the wind. There are no words in your language for what we have become. We see now, the ambassador continued, their voice carrying harmonics that seemed to resonate in my chest. We see everything we were blind to before. The complexity, the beauty of interconnection, the strength that comes from diversity rather than uniformity. They paused, colors rippling through their now translucent form. We were so wrong about humanity. I found myself gripping the edge of the console, my knuckles white. This was more than we hoped for, but also terrifying in its implications. We hadn't just changed their aggression. We'd fundamentally alter how they perceive reality itself. The others, I said carefully, your people in the other ships, in your colonies, are they? We are all changed, they replied. We are still connected, but not in the rigid hierarchy of before. Now they struggle for words. Imagine a symphony where every instrument can compose its own melody while still remaining in harmony with the whole. Reports were flooding in from around the world. Every Vexteri, from their highest leaders to their youngest members, had undergone the same transformation. Their technology, an extension of their crystalline nature, had evolved with them. The weapons they'd planned to use for our subjugation had transformed into tools of creation and exploration. There will be those among my people who question what you've done to us, Maya pointed out, her scientific caution asserting itself. We essentially force an evolution upon your entire species without consent. The ambassadors formed pulse with what I was beginning to recognize as their version of thoughtful consideration. Just as we were preparing to force your species into submission or extinction, they responded, but you chose to transform rather than destroy. That choice, that capacity for innovation coupled with mercy, it is exactly what we failed to see in humanity before. Suddenly, alarms began blaring throughout the facility. Maya rushed to her station. Multiple objects entering the solar system, she reported, her face pale. They're Vextheri ships. The rest of the fleet, the ones that weren't in Earth orbit. My heart sank. Of course. The ships near Earth weren't their entire civilization. We'd changed those within range of our broadcast. But what about the others? Had we just made Earth a target for revenge? The ambassadors' form brightened. Do not fear, they said, and there was something like joy in their melodic voice. Watch. On our screens, we could see the approaching fleet, their ships still bearing the sharp, aggressive crystalline form of the original Vextheri design. But as they drew closer to Earth, something extraordinary happened. The transformed ships in Earth orbit began to resonate, sending out pulses of light that rippled through space like waves on a pond. The frequency, I breathed, understanding dawning. It's self-propagating through your natural quantum connections. Yes, the ambassador confirmed. What you began, we now continue. Our entire civilization will transform, not through force, but through the natural resonance of truth recognized. We watched in awe as the approaching ships began to change, their transformation more graceful than the forced evolution we'd triggered. Like a time-lapse of crystalline flowers blooming, their forms shifted and flowed into new configurations. Dr. Bennett, the ambassador said softly, drawing my attention back to the screen. We came here believing we would find primitives to control or eliminate. Instead, we found teachers. The question now is, are you ready for what comes next? What has come next? I asked, aware that every word of this conversation was being recorded and would be studied by historians for centuries to come. The ambassador's form shimmered with complex patterns. Now we learn from each other. You've shown us a new way to exist. Perhaps we can show you what your own potential truly is. The next few weeks changed everything we thought we knew about not just the Vextheri, but about the fundamental nature of consciousness itself. In research facilities across the globe, humans and transformed Vextheri worked side by side, sharing insights that bridged the gap between our different forms of existence. I spent most of my time with the ambassador, whom we now called Aurora, a name they chose after experiencing their first Earth sunrise in their new form. Their ability to perceive and process information had evolved far beyond their original crystalline constraints. Your transformation, I said one evening as we sat in my lab reviewing data. It wasn't just physical, was it? You gained something more than just a new perspective. Aurora's form shimmered with what I'd learned to recognize as their equivalent of a smile. We gained the ability to see between the lines. They explained, before we perceive reality as absolute, binary, crystalline in its rigidity. Now we see the spaces between. The quantum foam of possibility that your species has always intuited but never fully grasped. They gestured, and the air between us filled with dancing patterns of light, a visual representation of quantum states that should have been impossible to perceive at our macro scale. Your species' greatest strength was never your technology or your physical capabilities, they said. It was your ability to imagine what could be rather than accepting what is. The implications of their words were staggering. Humanity had accidentally given the Vextheri something they'd never had before, the ability to dream. Reports came in daily of new breakthroughs. In Japan, a joint team had developed a way to use modified Vextheri technology to clean the oceans of microplastics. In Brazil, they were regrowing rainforests at an unprecedented rate. And in orbit, the transformed ships were teaching us about forms of space travel we'd never even imagined. But not everyone was celebrating. I received a secured message from General Santos that evening that brought me crashing back to political reality. Dr. Bennett, Her hologram said gravely, "There's concern among certain parties that we've made ourselves vulnerable. The Vex theory may seem changed, but we have no long-term proof this transformation is permanent. Some are suggesting we need contingency plans." I could feel Aurora's presence behind me, their crystalline form pulsing with subtle colors. They'd heard everything, of course. Their senses now extended far beyond what we'd initially understood. "Your leaders fear what they do not understand," Aurora said, their voice carrying harmonics of both sadness and understanding, "just as we once feared what we could not control. Perhaps it is time to show them what true cooperation can achieve." They moved to the center of the lab, their form beginning to glow with an inner light that made the air itself seem to vibrate with possibility. "Dr. Bennett, would you assist me in a demonstration? One that might help your species understand that the greatest power lies not in weapons or control, but in the space between fear and trust." I nodded, understanding that we were about to cross another threshold. The transformation we triggered wasn't just about changing the Vex theory. It was about changing ourselves, about learning to see beyond our own limitations and fears. "Tell General Santos to gather your world's leaders," Aurora said, their form now pulsing with complex patterns I'd never seen before. "It's time to show humanity what you've really created. Not just a changed enemy, but a doorway to your own evolution." The United Nations General Assembly Hall had never seen anything quite like this. World leaders sat in stunned silence as Aurora hovered above the central podium, their crystalline form casting rainbow patterns across every surface. Behind them, through the hall's massive windows, their transformed ships created an aurora-like display in the New York sky. "What we offer today," Aurora's voice resonated through the chamber, "is not just technology or knowledge. We offer you a choice, the same choice you gave us, though yours will come without compulsion." I stood at the side of the stage, my heart racing. We'd rehearsed this, discussed every detail, but seeing it unfold still left me breathless. Maya squeezed my hand, her presence anchoring me in the moment. "Your species," Aurora continued, "exists in a unique state. You are quantum beings trapped in classical bodies. Your minds touch the infinite, but your forms hold you back. We never saw this before. How could we? We were too rigid, too certain of our superiority. But now we understand what makes humanity special." Their form expanded, filling the air with crystalline patterns that seemed to extend into dimensions we couldn't quite perceive. In the audience, people gasped as the patterns began to intersect with their own bodies, creating brief moments of resonance that left them glowing faintly. "You dream," Aurora said simply. "You imagine. You see what isn't and make it real. This gift, this ability to transform possibility into reality, it is the most powerful force we have ever encountered. And now we can help you fully embrace it." The Chinese president stood up, his face a mixture of wonder and concern. "What exactly are you proposing?" Aurora's form pulsed with warm colors. "We propose teaching humanity how to access the quantum layer reality consciously, not through external technology, but through the development of abilities that already lie dormant in your species. You wouldn't become like us. You would become more fully yourselves." "This is dangerous," General Santos interjected from her seat. "We're talking about fundamentally altering human nature." I stepped forward then, knowing it was my time to speak. "No," I said, my voice carrying through the hall. "We're talking about understanding human nature for the first time. The Vex theory didn't come here to conquer us anymore. They came to wake us up." Aurora nodded, their form creating patterns that somehow made perfect sense to our minds despite their impossible geometry. "Dr. Bennett is correct. Your species stands at a crossroads. You can remain as you are, and we will respect that choice, or you can take the next step in your evolution, conscious, willing, and united." The hall erupted in overlapping conversations, fears and hopes all mingling together, but I wasn't paying attention to them. I was watching the patterns Aurora was creating, seeing for the first time how they intersected with the quantum fields that underlay our reality, and I understood what they were really offering. Not just an advancement, but an awakening. Show them, I whispered to Aurora. Show them what I saw in the lab. Aurora's form brightened, and suddenly the entire hall was filled with living light, each pattern connecting to something deep within every person present. For just a moment, we all saw it. The infinite web of possibility that connected everything, the quantum dance that our minds had always sensed but never fully perceived. When the light faded, there wasn't a dry eye in the house. Even the most hardened skeptics sat in stunned silence, touched by something they couldn't deny. That, Aurora said softly, is just a beginning. The vote was unanimous. For the first time in human history, every nation, every leader, every voice in that hall agreed on something truly transformative. We would embark on this new journey together, not as conquerors of the conquered, but as partners in discovery. In the months that followed, humanity and the Vextheri, now calling themselves the Luminari, reflecting their new understanding, worked side by side to unlock the potential within us all. The process was gradual, guided by the Luminari's deep understanding of quantum consciousness and humanity's innate creativity. We didn't lose what made us human. Instead, we gained the ability to see the world as it truly was, a tapestry of infinite possibilities. The first breakthrough came when a child in Nairobi, playing with a Luminari teaching device, accidentally projected her imagination into reality, creating a small glowing flower that pulsed with life. Then a scientist in Berlin, meditating on quantum equations, found he could manipulate matter at the atomic level with nothing but his focused intent. These abilities weren't limited to a select few. They were latent in all of us, waiting to be awakened. But with this new power came responsibility. The Luminari taught us not just how to access these abilities, but how to use them wisely. We learned to see the interconnectedness of all things, to understand that every action rippled through the quantum fabric of reality. Wars ended, not through force, but through the simple act of understanding. Poverty and hunger vanished as we learned to manifest what we needed from the quantum field itself. Earth transformed. Cities became living works of art blending human creativity with Luminari technology. The air cleared, the oceans healed, and the planet began to thrive in ways we'd never imagined possible. And beyond Earth, our reach extended into the stars. The Luminari ships, now powered by the combined consciousness of both species, carried us to worlds we'd only dreamed of visiting. I stood with Aurora one evening, looking out over a city that pulsed with life and light. We thought we were saving ourselves. I said, my voice filled with wonder, but we were saving each other. Aurora's form shimmered with colors I still couldn't name. You showed us the power of imagination, of dreaming, and we showed you the science behind it. Together, we've created something entirely new, a civilization that understands its place in the universe. As I looked out at the world we'd created, I realized this was just a beginning. The Luminari had once thought themselves the pinnacle of evolution. We'd thought ourselves insignificant in the grand scheme of the cosmos. But together, we discovered that the true power lies in the space between, in the connections we forge, the dreams we share, and the infinite possibilities we create together. The stars above us seem closer now, not just in distance, but in understanding. And as I reached out with my newly awakened quantum senses, I could feel the universe itself responding, ready to show us wonders beyond our wildest dreams. We had changed the Vextheri. They had changed us. And together, we would change everything. It had been 5 years since humanity and the Luminari began their journey together. 5 years of unprecedented growth, harmony, and discovery. Earth had been transformed. Its cities now living symphonies of light and consciousness. Its ecosystems restored to vibrant health. Millions of humans had awakened their quantum abilities, learning to perceive and interact with reality in ways once thought impossible. I stood with Aurora on the observation deck of the Quantum Horizon, our flagship vessel orbiting Jupiter. Below us, the gas giant swirling storm seemed to respond to our presence, patterns forming and dissolving as if in conversation with our combined consciousness. "Something's bothering you, Olivia," Aurora said, their crystalline forms shifting through subtle hues of concern. After years of working together, they could read my quantum signature as easily as I once read facial expressions. We've come so far, I admitted, but lately I've been having dreams, or visions, something calling from beyond the heliopause. Aurora's form pulsed with interest. The quantum field is infinite. Perhaps what you're sensing is not a dream at all. That night, as I meditated in my quarters, I allowed my consciousness to expand beyond my physical form, reaching into the quantum tapestry that connected all things. I'd become adept at this practice, my mind flowing like water through the barriers of conventional physics. But this time, something different happened. A presence, ancient, vast, watching. I jolted back to full awareness, my heart racing. I called to my assistant, who had become one of the first humans to master quantum communication. I need you to gather the Luminari Council. There's something out there, something watching us. The Luminari Council chamber hummed with the combined consciousness of 23 beings, 12 humans and 11 former Vexthari. As I shared my experience, I could feel their minds linking with mine, strengthening my memory, helping me to hold and examine what I'd sensed. "It's not hostile," said Kai, a quantum physicist from Singapore who had become one of our most gifted human sensitives. "But it's waiting, assessing." Aurora's form brightened. "The Watchers," they said, the words resonating with significance that vibrated through our connected minds. "You know them?" I asked, surprised. "Not know. Remember," Aurora replied. "Before we were the Vexthari, before we crystallized our consciousness into rigid patterns of conquest and hierarchy, our ancestors spoke of beings that existed in the spaces between stars, beings of pure quantum potential that watched the evolution of physical life. The revelation sent ripples of excitement and apprehension through our mental link. If the Luminari, who had once been among the most advanced species we knew of, considered these entities ancient and powerful, what did that mean for us? "They're reaching out now because of what we become," General Santos suggested. She had remained cautious even after her own quantum awakening, her military mind always alert for potential threats. "The question is why." I shared the strange symbols I glimpsed during my meditation, geometric patterns that seemed to exist in more dimensions than I could fully perceive. A young Luminari named Iris, who specialized in quantum linguistics, pulsed with recognition. "These are not just symbols," they said. "They're coordinates. An invitation." "To where?" asked Maya. Iris projected a three-dimensional map of the galaxy, highlighting a point near the galactic core. "Here, a place where space-time itself has different properties, a nexus of quantum potential." Aurora's form shifted to deep blues of concern. "The journey would take us through regions we've never explored, and we don't know their intentions." "I do," I said with sudden certainty. "They want to see what we've become. What happens when two species transform each other instead of destroying each other. We're an experiment they never expected, and now they want to meet the results." General Santos frowned. "How can you be sure?" I couldn't explain it. The understanding had simply appeared in my mind, clear as crystal, the same way I knew how to transform the Vexthari. Sometimes knowledge comes from beyond conscious thought. The debate lasted for days. Some feared a trap, others an opportunity too valuable to miss. In the end, the decision came down to the same choice we'd faced before: fear what we didn't understand, or embrace the unknown with hope and courage. 3 months later, a fleet of 7 ships, our most advanced vessels, designed by human and Luminari minds working in harmony, prepared to journey to the galactic core. I stood on the bridge of the lead ship, the Phoenix Ascendant, watching Earth recede in our view screens. "You're afraid?" Aurora observed, joining me. "I'm excited." I corrected them. "But yes, also afraid. Last time we launched into the unknown, we accidentally transformed an entire species. What will happen this time?" Aurora's form rippled with amusement. "That's what makes your species so remarkable, Olivia. You're terrified and thrilled in equal measure. I laughed. And your species has learned to embrace paradox. We make a good team. As our ships accelerated to quantum slip velocity, a method of travel that utilized our combined consciousness to fold space around us, I couldn't shake the feeling that we were heading towards something that would transform us yet again. I just didn't realize how profound that transformation would be. Our journey took us through wonders and perils alike. We encountered dying stars that sang in frequencies beyond normal hearing, civilizations emerging from their planetary cradles, and predatory void entities that fed on light itself. Each challenge required both human creativity and luminary wisdom to overcome. But nothing prepared us for what awaited at our destination. "That's impossible," Maya whispered as we dropped our quantum slip and beheld the Nexus. Before us hung a massive structure, if structure was even the right word. It defied conventional physics, existing simultaneously as solid matter and pure energy. It resembled a vast, multidimensional flower with petals that extended into space-time itself, folding reality around it. Each petal housed would appear to be an entire ecosystem, some familiar to our understanding, others completely alien. "It's alive," Aurora murmured, their form pulsing with complex patterns I'd never seen before. "And aware of us." The moment they spoke those words, I felt it, a presence so vast it made me dizzy. My quantum senses, now finally honed after years of practice, detected consciousness on a scale I couldn't comprehend. "Greetings, children of transformation." A voice resonated directly in our minds, bypassing language entirely. "We have waited long for one such as you." On our bridge, every human and luminary stood transfixed. The voice seemed to speak to each of us individually, in the language of our deepest thoughts. "Who are you?" I managed to ask, reaching for Aurora's hand to anchor myself. "We are the architects," the voice replied. "Those who seed possibilities across the cosmos. Those who watch and wait for the moment when consciousness learns to transcend its origins." Images flowed into our minds. The architects, beings of pure quantum potential, traveling across countless galaxies, observing the rise and fall of civilizations, occasionally nudging evolution toward greater complexity, but never directly interfering. "You've been guiding us?" General Santos asked, her mental tone sharp with suspicion. "Not guiding, observing. The universe experiments with itself through life forms such as yours. We merely appreciate the results. And occasionally, very occasionally, we find those ready for what comes next." "What comes next?" Aurora and I asked simultaneously. The response wasn't in words, but in a sudden expansion of perception. For one breathtaking moment, I saw beyond the physical universe the quantum substrate beneath, an infinite tapestry of possibility where time and space were merely patterns rather than absolutes. When my awareness returned to normal, I found myself on my knees, tears streaming down my face. Around me, others were having similar reactions. Even the luminari were pulsing with colors I'd never seen before. "You're offering us evolution," I said, understanding dawning. "Not biological or technological, but existential." "Yes," the architects confirmed. "What you began between your species was merely the first step. Both human and Vextheri were bound by forms that limited your true potential. You found a way to begin transcending those limits together. Now we offer you the next threshold." Maya helped me to my feet. "And if we refuse?" "Then you return home, wiser for having seen what's possible. We do not compel. We only offer." General Santos, ever practical, stepped forward. "And what happens to Earth if we accept? To our physical forms, our civilization?" The answer came not from the architects, but from Aurora, their crystalline form now glowing with inner revelation. "We wouldn't abandon what we built," they said with certainty. "We'd exist in both states simultaneously, physical entities and quantum beings. Like the architects, we would become bridges between potentiality and actuality." A tense deliberation followed. Some of us were eager to embrace this new transformation, while others feared losing our humanity or luminary identity. In the process, we debated, argued, contemplated for days while the architects waited, patient as beings who had witnessed the birth and death of stars. In the end, we decided to send a delegation, 5 humans and 5 luminari, who would undergo the transformation first and return to share what they experienced. I volunteered immediately. So did Aurora. The transformation chamber, if you could call it that, was a space where the rules of reality seemed more like suggestions. The walls rippled with quantum potential, and gravity operated in localized pockets rather than as a uniform force. "Are you ready?" Aurora asked, their forms shimmering with anticipation. I took a deep breath. "No, but I'm doing it anyway." We stood with our 8 companions in a circle, human and luminari alternating, hands and crystalline appendages linked. The architect had explained that the process would be catalyzed by our already existing quantum abilities, accelerated by their technology, but ultimately guided by our own intentions. "Remember," said the architect who had been communicating with us, "a being we'd come to call Symmetra, though names meant little to entities of their nature. Your physical forms will remain as anchors, but your consciousness will expand beyond them. Neither human nor luminary physiology has attempted this before. Your experience will be unique." The process began with a subtle vibration, not sound, but a resonance in the quantum field itself. I felt my consciousness expanding, similar to my meditation practices, but far more profound. The boundaries between myself and Aurora began to blur, not in a loss of identity, but in a magnificent sharing of perspective. Then came the pain, not physical, but the existential vertigo of a mind struggling to comprehend realities beyond its evolution. I heard screams, realized they were my own, felt Aurora's steadying presence as they two fought through the disorientation. And then transcendence. I existed in multiple states simultaneously. I was still Olivia Bennett, standing in the transformation chamber, gripping Aurora's crystalline hand. But I was also spread across the quantum field like a wave function, perceiving realities stacked upon realities. I could see time as a dimension I could move through rather than a current carrying me forward. Most importantly, I could see the connections, filaments of quantum potential linking all conscious beings across the universe. The architects existed primarily in this state, their physical forms merely temporary anchors they created when needed. They were ancient beyond comprehension, having evolved from physical beings billions of years ago. And they were not alone. "There are others," I gasped as my awareness began to retract somewhat, finding equilibrium between expanded consciousness and localized identity. "Other transcended species." "Yes," Symmetra confirmed. "A community of beings who have evolved beyond singular existence. Some maintain connection to their original forms, as we offer you the opportunity to do. Others have fully transcended physical reality. But why us?" asked Kai, his form now pulsing with patterns similar to the Luminari. "Why now?" "Because you found a third path," came the response. "Throughout cosmic history, when advanced species meet, they typically either destroy each other or isolate themselves. Human and Vex theory found another way. Mutual transformation. This capacity, this choice to evolve together rather than compete, is rare, precious. It suggests you are ready for the wider community of consciousness. As we acclimated to our new state of being, I made a stunning discovery. The transcendent state allowed access to a kind of universal library, a repository of knowledge from all the species who had made this transition before. Not a database in any conventional sense, but a shared field of experiential memory. This is why you didn't interfere when the Vex theory threatened Earth. I realized accessing this knowledge. You've learned that species must find their own solutions or the transition fails. Yes, Symmetra acknowledged. Those who are given transcendence rather than finding their path to it cannot sustain the state. They fracture, sometimes catastrophically. Your solution, the sonic frequency that rewrote Vex theory consciousness, was unexpected but effective precisely because it came from your unique circumstances. Over what might have been days or mere moments in physical time, we learned to navigate our new state of being. We could focus our consciousness into our physical forms completely when needed, expand partially to access quantum abilities, or extend fully into the transcendent state to commune with the architects and explore the universe beyond conventional limitations. When we finally returned to our ships, we were changed in ways difficult to articulate to those who hadn't experienced the transformation. But one thing was clear: we needed to bring this opportunity back to Earth. Our return journey was far faster than our departure. With our new abilities, we could navigate quantum space with unprecedented precision. What had taken months now took days. As Earth came into view, a blue jewel spinning in the void, I felt a wave of emotion. It was still home, still precious, but now I saw it as part of a much larger tapestry. The question was, how would humanity and the Illuminati respond to what we offered? We called a global assembly unlike any before it. Using the worldwide network of quantum resonators that had been established after the Illuminati transformation, we created a virtual forum where billions could witness our return and the choice we presented. I stood on a stage in what had once been the UN General Assembly, now rebuilt as the Earth Harmony Center. Aurora stood beside me, their form now capable of shifts between physical crystalline structure and patterns of pure energy. What we bring back is not technology, I explained to the assembled leaders and the billions watching worldwide. It is evolution, the next step in consciousness, available to any who choose it. But it remains a choice, Aurora emphasized. Unlike the transformation we underwent years ago, this cannot and will not be forced upon anyone. Each individual, human or Illuminati, must decide for themselves. The questions came rapidly. Would we lose our humanity? Would society collapse if some transcended and others didn't? Was this the end of human history? Not an end, I assured them. A beginning. Those who choose transcendence won't abandon Earth or physical existence. They'll gain the ability to shift between states of being, will become bridges between the physical and quantum realms, between past and future, between what we are and what we could become. The debate that followed split humanity and the Illuminati alike. Some embraced the opportunity immediately, seeing it as the natural progression of our journey together. Others feared it would create an unbridgeable gap between the transcended and those who remain fully physical. Religious leaders gathered to determine whether this constituted a spiritual evolution or a departure from humanity's divine nature. Scientists worked feverishly to understand the process from a technical perspective. Parents worried about what it would mean for their children. And in the midst of this global soul-searching, something unexpected happened. They came without warning, massive ships appearing suddenly in Earth orbit, their design reminiscent of the original Vextari vessels, but even more aggressive. Sharp crystalline structures bristling with weapons beyond our comprehension. The Vextari purists, Aurora explained, their form pulsing with alarm. Those who were beyond the range of the transformation frequency 5 years ago. They've been watching, waiting, and now they've come to correct what they see as a perversion of their species. Panic threatened to engulf Earth. Our planetary defense systems, though enhanced with Illuminati technology, were designed for peace, not war against an armada of this magnitude. And our transcended delegates were too few to defend the planet through our new abilities alone. The Purist Commander's message was broadcast globally. The aberration ends now. The creatures called Illuminati will be purged and reset to their true Vextari nature. Humanity will submit or be eliminated. You have 6 hours to surrender. In the Earth Harmony Center, chaos erupted. Some call for immediate transcendence of all willing participants to fight back with new abilities. Others suggested surrender, hoping to buy time. Military leaders argued for deploying our conventional defenses, knowing they would likely fail. I stood silent, my mind racing between physical awareness and expanded consciousness, searching for a solution. And then I found it, not in the future, but in the past. We've been here before, I said, my voice cutting to the panic. 5 years ago, facing the same ultimatum. But we're not the same people we were then. And we don't have to choose between surrender or destruction. Auroras form brighten with understanding. You want to offer them the same choice we had. Not force transformation upon them, as we did before. I clarified. But show them what's possible, what lies beyond conquest and hierarchy. Let them choose evolution over extinction. General Santos shook her head. They won't listen. These aren't the same Vex theory you transformed. These are the hardliners, the true believers in their own superiority. Then we need to speak in terms they understand. I countered, power, not violence, but the true power of unified consciousness. What followed was the most ambitious plan I'd ever conceived. We had 6 hours to prepare Earth for contact with the transcended realm in a way we'd never attempted before, a planetary awakening. The 10 of us who had undergone transcendence became conductors of a global symphony of consciousness. Through the quantum resonator network, we connected with every willing, human and luminary on Earth, creating a cascading effect as each awakened mind helped awaken others, not to full transcendence. There wasn't time for that, but to a glimpse of what lay beyond physical existence. As the deadline approached, billions of minds joined in unified purpose, not erasing individual identity, but harmonize it in a chorus of quantum potential. The effect was like a beacon visible across dimensions, a demonstration of evolutionary potential that no conventional sensor could detect, but that resonated through the quantum substrate of reality itself. When the purest ships began their approach, weapons charging, they encountered something they couldn't comprehend. A planet glowing with quantum consciousness. Billions of minds joined in a tapestry of unified with that bent probability itself. Their weapons failed to fire. Their engines stalled. The laws of physics seemed to develop localized exceptions wherever their aggression manifested. What is this? The purest commander demanded. His crystalline face contorted with confusion as his ships hung immobilized in Earth orbit. I appeared on his bridge, not physically, but as a projection of my transcended consciousness. This is evolution, I answered simply. This is what happens when species choose to grow together instead of destroying each other. Impossible, he snarled. The Vex theory are the pinnacle of evolution. We do not change. We perfect. And that's why you've stagnated, Aurora said, their consciousness joining mine in projection. True perfection isn't a state. It's a journey. Together, we showed him, not told, but showed through direct quantum connection, what the Luminari had become, how the transformation had not destroyed Vex theory nature, but fulfilled its potential in ways their rigid hierarchy never could, how humans and Luminari together had accessed realities the purists couldn't imagine in their crystalline certainty. Most importantly, we showed them the community of transcended species waiting beyond the physical limitations they clung to so desperately. Civilizations ancient when the first Vex theory crystal formed. Beings who had evolved beyond the need for conquest, yet still honored their origins. The purest commander's consciousness recoiled, then tentatively reached out again. Curiosity overcoming dogma. And in that moment of openness, the first crack appeared in their certainty. We offer you the same choice we had. I told him, not forced transformation, but opportunity. See what you might become, then decide. The standoff lasted 3 days. 3 days while Earth remained in a state of unified quantum consciousness, humans and Luminari sustaining each other's focus. The 10 transcended delegates acting as conduits for the architect's knowledge. Gradually, individual purists requested to experience what we offered, just a glimpse, just enough to understand. Each who did return to their companions changed, not in the fundamental sense, but in perspective. The rigid hierarchy began to dissolve from within as questions replaced certainties. On the 4th day, the purest commander, a being called Helix, requested to speak with me directly, consciousness to consciousness. What transpired was not a conversation in any conventional sense, but sharing of total experience. My journey from NASA scientist to architect to transformation to transcended being, his path from dedicated protector of Vex theory purity to a leader facing the ultimate challenge to his worldview. You could have destroyed us, he acknowledged finally. The combined consciousness of your planet could have simply unwritten our existence, yet you offered evolution instead. Because that's what we learned 5 years ago. I explained. True power isn't about destruction. It's about transformation, not forcing change, but creating the conditions where change becomes possible. When I returned to my physical form, exhausted but hopeful, Aurora was waiting. They've decided, they said, their form pulsing with complex emotions. The purest ships, all 57 of them, had arranged themselves in a perfect geometric pattern above Earth. As we watched, their crystalline structures began to shift, not into the organic flowing shapes the original Vextari had adopted, but into something new, a hybrid of rigid structure and flowing potential that reflected their unique path. Not Purus anymore, Helix communicated from the lead ship. Not Luminari either. We will find our own evolution, our own name, our own path. But first, we have much to learn. In the months that followed, Earth became a cosmic crossroads. The former Purists established settlements on Mars and Jupiter's moons, close enough to learn from Earth's example, but separate enough to develop their own culture. Many eventually chose transcendence, while others remained fully physical, creating a spectrum of consciousness that enriched all involved. More importantly, our planet became known to the wider community of transcended species, a young but promising member of a cosmic network we hadn't known existed. The architects, having confirmed our readiness, introduced us to others, the crystalline thought weavers of Deneb, the plasma consciousness of the Carina Nebula, the distributed intelligence that spanned the entire Andromeda galaxy. Each had found their own path to transcendence. Each maintained connections to their origins, and each offered unique perspectives on the nature of existence itself. We had joined a conversation that had been ongoing for millions of years. 10 years have passed since the day we transformed the Vextari. 7 years since our encounter with the architects. 5 years since the Purists became the Chrysalis. Earth is not the same planet it was. Yes, the physical structure remains. Our blue marble still orbits the sun, still hosts the incredible biodiversity that first evolved here. But now it exists simultaneously as a node in the quantum network of transcendent consciousness, a beacon visible across dimensions to those with the senses to perceive it. Not everyone chose transcendence. Some humans and Luminari prefer to remain fully physical, honoring the forms they were born to while benefiting from the advances our expanded perspective provided. Others exist primarily in the transcended state, returning to physical form only occasionally. Most, like me, shift between states as circumstances require, physical when connecting with the sensory pleasures of existence, transcended when working with concepts that defy conventional understanding. I still maintain my lab in the Rocky Mountains, though now it spans physical and quantum spaces simultaneously. Maya leads a research team focused on helping new initiates navigate the transition to transcendent consciousness. General Sandos oversees Earth's peaceful expansion into our solar system, and Aurora has become something extraordinary even among the transcended, a bridge between multiple species perspectives, helping the former Vextari integrate their experiences across all their evolutionary stages. We face new challenges now. Questions of governance when consciousness can span light years instantly, ethics of interacting with emerging sentient species, the discovery of threats that exist primarily in the quantum substrate rather than physical space. But we face them together, humans, Luminari, and Chrysalis alike, each bringing unique perspectives to our shared evolution. Sometimes I return to the control room at NASA where this all began, where I dropped my coffee cup as a Vextari message scrolled across our screens. I run my fingers across the console, and remember being limited to a single perspective, a single moment in time, a single point in space. It seems like a lifetime ago. Nostalgia? Aurora asks, their consciousness brushing against mine. Appreciation? I correct them. For how far we've come, and for the fact that it all started with a threat. The universe has a peculiar sense of humor. They agree, their forms shifting between physical crystal and quantum pattern. Evolution often begins with existential danger. Together, We extend our awareness beyond Earth, beyond our solar system, into the vast quantum network that connects all transcendent consciousness. New signals are appearing at the edges of our perception, another species taking their first steps toward the greater community, facing their own crisis, making their own choices. Should we help them? I wonder aloud. Aurora's response holds all the wisdom our journey has taught us. We should watch, wait, and be ready to welcome them when they find their own way forward. I smile, both in my physical form and across the quantum planes of my extended consciousness. The universe is vaster and stranger and more beautiful than I ever imagined when I was just Dr. Olivia Bennett of NASA. And the journey, I now understand, has only just begun. The Vex theory thought they were giving us an ultimatum: submit or be eliminated. Instead, they gave us a beginning. And beyond every horizon, new beginnings await.